Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. I'm sure you are fine and you are doing great with your studies. As you know, in our past few classes, we've been talking about grammatical sentence, its, definition, concepts, and different issues, especially we talked about. In our last class, if you remember, we discussed, two very important aspects of grammatical sentence. One was subject-verb agreement, and second was, problems with pronouns. Today, in this class, we'll complete our discussion on grammatical sentence, and then we'll switch over, towards effective sentences. If I found time, at the end of the class, I would try to give you a review of, what we discussed actually in 3-4 classes on grammatical sentence. Let's continue with our discussion after subject-verb agreements, where we talked about, that subject and verb of your, sentence, of course, should agree with each other. If subject is singular, verb has to be singular, plural, verb has to be plural. And many, different aspects. And I'm sure you have studied them, very carefully, and you now have a very clear idea what actually subject and verb agreements are. And then we talked about, pronouns, problems of pronouns, issues related to them. And, of course, we discussed that 3 different forms of pronouns, subject and, it's possessive and, object form, and where subject goes, where object goes, how we use this possessive form, and then there are reflexive pronouns, all their use, and different discussions and debates related to pronouns. Today, I'm going to take you towards another very important area of grammatical sentence. That's, of course, adjectives and adverbs. We, of course, will not discuss what adjectives and adverbs are. You, of course, have studied, in your past classes. We'll talk about different issues related to adjectives and adverbs, different problems, while writing, which, come up and we need to resolve. Of course, now there is no need to, ask you whether you know their definitions or not. Just to refresh, your memories, adjectives are what? Adjectives are, words which qualify nouns. And adverbs are what? Adverbs are, words which qualify verbs. Of course, both belong to the picture word category. If you remember, we divided our 8 parts of speech into 2, categories. Category 1 was the picture word, and category B was the function words. And other than adjectives and adverbs, of course, that there are 2 more, which is, of course, your noun and, the 4th one, which is, your verb thing. So these 4 actually make up the fabric of the picture word, in your speech. Remaining, 4, there were the function words. And we studied, if you remember, that picture words, they, of course, carry. Of course, every word in a sentence has its own, part to play, its own, role to perform. But now you know that picture words actually carry the main meanings of your sentence. And when we speak, or especially when we speak, what we do actually, we give more stress on to our picture words and less stress goes on to, our function words. And, of course, it is now in your information that sometimes we use weak forms or we contract, certain words in our, sentences. Or at times, we just simply, omit those certain words in a sentence. Of course, all the 3 cases are about, the function words. Picture words, of course, they since carry the main, picture of your sentence, main idea of your sentence, of course, we give a little more stress on to. Okay, coming back to adjectives and adverbs and their problems, of course, that adjectives qualify nouns and pronouns. Adverbs qualify 3 things. Adverbs qualify verbs. Adverbs qualify adjectives also, and adverbs also qualify adverbs. So three, function. And of course, when we say qualifying, it means, modifying also. I mean, adjectives modify nouns. Adjective modify the meanings of noun. Adverbs, modify the meanings of verbs, and adverbs and adjectives also. Now, like in the last class, I, gave you certain rules to follow. And then I showed you some examples. Exactly in the same fashion, we'll move, through this class, that I'll, of course, give you different rules related to adjective and adverbs. And then I'll show you some, sentences. And I'll ask you also that, work with me and, correct the errors, possible errors, in some, examples. And then, of course, we'll, move ahead, with all possible rules related to adjectives and adverbs, and plus, some other issues about, grammatical sentence. Now, rule number one, what it says? Rule number one is about adverbs, means use adverbs, not adjectives, to modify or qualify what? Verbs, adverbs, and adjectives. Why this rule? It's understood, you might, say, well, it's understood, adverb has to modify, verb. Adverb has to modify, some adjectives also. Adverb has to modify adverbs also. It's understood. No, what I mean to say here is, but sometimes we mistake adjectives for adverbs. Now, you may ask me, like, for example, in what situations? Look, words like good and words like, perfect, for example. We, at times, ignore, should we use good and perfect as adjective or adverb? Or take it this way, are these two words, being used for nouns or used for, verbs? Like when we say, when we want to appreciate somebody, that you've done, for example, great, or you've done perfect, or you have done good. Now, you are appreciating actually. Now, here, you use the word you've done. Now, do and done, this is verb actually, and it has to be modified by adverb thing, not adjective. Now, if you see it carefully, you've done great. Now, great actually is an adjective. It's not an adverb. Usually, the sign of an adverb, of course, in not all cases, but in most of the cases, sign of an adverb is ly, ending ly. For example, when we say perfect and then perfectly, we add ly, at the end of the word. If you see in, three of the cases, like perfect, like good, like great, all the three, words are adjective, actually, not adverb. When we say you've done great, you've done great means what? That actually it should have been, you've done greatly, you've done well, or you've done perfectly. Now, perfectly, greatly, and well. Now, these are, three, adverbs to be used for verbs. So this is one very common error, which people usually make when they use adjectives, and adverbs. So the rule number one says what? Use adverbs, not adjectives, for, of course, verbs, for, of course, adjectives in case, and for adverbs also. To give you some example, like the one which I have given you, just a very easy one, very frank one, just to clear your concept. Now, let me give you a little more, difficult, or you can say advanced example, just to give you as a brain teaser to see, like, whether adjective should come or adverb should come. If you take a look on your screen, the sentence goes, the arrangement worked out perfect for everyone. Now, if you see, the arrangement worked out perfect. See the same thing, which I just discussed with you. When we, like, change our mode from, written to spoken stuff, what happens actually? At times, we use our body language to convey that ending ly. For example, when we say you've done great. Now, this great actually comes in commas. Now, great actually is just a gesture. I mean, look, in writing, when we say you've done perfect, rule, they say you've done perfectly, okay? But when we speak actually, so we actually are not using the word perfectly. We are using it as an appreciation. An appreciation is, uppercase G-R-E-A-T or P-E-R-F-E-C-T. You've done perfect. Now, this perfect actually comes in commas. So that difference, at times creeps into our writing also. But in writing now, reader will not understand that, writer was actually trying to use it grammatically, or he was trying to use it as a gesture or of appreciation. That these things are not missing. Unless, the writer gives in bracket, the situation in which, he used the word great or perfect, not perfectly. So you see this example that the arrangement worked out perfect for everyone. Now, it should be actually the arrangement worked out perfectly for everyone. Second example you can see, I was surprised to hear that Hassan had done so good in exam. Now, bring it to you actually. Put it on, and of course, you're also going to say the same way, that good. I mean, here, rules say, grammatically speaking, it should be well, actually. So, the spoken elements, at times creep into our, writing stuff also. So, we should be very, very careful. So, rule number 1, I repeat, this is something important, that use adverbs, not adjectives, to modify, to qualify, to add more meanings to add flesh to the skeleton, what? To change, verbs, to change adverbs, and to change adjectives. This goes your rule number 1. Now, second rule is another very interesting and very important one. And here I'll give you a shock also. If not, then you are going to receive it as a shock. That, of course, adjectives we use for nouns only. This is what actually now we've talked about and studied. But in certain cases, which, of course, I'll reveal it onto you today, first go for the rule that use adjectives. Please listen carefully. Use adjectives, not adverbs, for the subject complement. Now, the rule goes what? Use what? Use adjectives, not adverbs. Use adjectives, not adverbs, for the subject complement. Now, please understand subject complement means what? If you remember, simply go back to your earlier classes where we talked about basic clause patterns, And one clause pattern was what? Subject, verb, and complement. Verb is stative verb, condition verb. Automatically, it takes what? It takes subject complement. And now what we are saying is, if you want to put a modifier at the place of subject complement, it has to be in adjective form, not in adverb form. Now, sentence. When I say, it tastes good. Now, good is one word, its adjective is good, and its adverb is well. Now, please listen carefully. It tastes good or it tastes well. Now, taste is a sense verb, and we of course know that there are 5 sense verbs, and all the sense verbs are stative verbs, unless the context has its own play. If you remember, if you change the context, then sense verbs can also become action verbs. For example, when I say, it tastes good, or if I say, I'm tasting it, now here taste is an action verb. But when I say, it tastes good, it's not an action verb, it's a stative condition verb. Okay, now, it tastes good or it tastes well. The rule says, please keep in mind, taste in this context, it tastes good. In this context, tastes is a stative condition verb. After condition verb comes what? Subject complement. Now, should the subject complement be good or well? Rule says, use adjective, not adverb for subject complements. So the sentence should go, it tastes good. He looks sharp. Now, he looks sharp. Here, he looks sharply. I mean, you may, go for sharply. Why? Because look is a verb. Adverb should come to qualify. So sharp is an adjective. Ending ly. Sharply, looks sharply. Rule says no. Use adjective, not adverb for subject complement. Now, what's the shock which I talked about before I started discussing with you? The second rule. The shock is, I don't know whether you noticed or not, that we are using adjectives for verbs. This is something very interesting. What I'm saying is, we are using adjectives for verbs. Now, in our previous classes, what we have discussed is that adjective only and only and only describes what? Noun, not verb. And adverb describes verb, and adverb also describes adjective. It also describes adverb. But adjective thing is something which only describes noun. Now here, if I give you the example again, he looks sharp. He looks sharp. Look is a verb and sharp is an adjective. So adjective is qualifying verb. This is one exception actually in English language, that with sense verbs actually. Now please note down, this is something very, very, very important. Sense verbs, of course, you know that look is there, smell is there, taste is there, touch is there, feel, I guess, is there. So there are 5 actually sense verbs. These 5 sense verbs, which are of course stative verbs, they do not take adverbs to get modified or qualified. They take adjectives to get modified or qualified. That's actually a shock. Now keep in mind, this is just an exception in English language, and you'll have to take it. Otherwise, of course, adjectives for nouns, but only condition, these sense verbs, they will not be, taking adverbs for them. They'll be taking adjectives. Now, these are our 2 rules. First rule, adverb for verbs. Second rule, adjective, not adverb, for the subject complement. Now, let's move to our third rule about adjectives and adverb. Let's see what it is. If you take a look, the third rule actually says, use comparatives and superlatives with care. First, please understand what are comparatives and superlatives. Comparatives and superlative means what? We simply qualifying, when we use adjective, we are qualifying, modifying, describing further nouns. But sometimes we compare also. Like you can compare yourself with your younger or elder brother, younger or elder sister. Your intelligence, she's more intelligent or you are more intelligent. So when we say comparatives, comparisons and superlatives. Now, what's the difference actually? Difference is comparatives means when A is compared with B. In other words, when you compare one with second, when you compare yourself with your sister or your brother, or if I compare myself with my brother or my sister, or if I compare this chair with the chair in which you are sitting. So this comparison actually, comparison of 2 things with each other. Things are big, things are small. So comparison. Things are beautiful, things are ugly. So comparison is there. Things are cheap, things are expensive. So comparison is always there. Things are comfortable, not comfortable. Comparison is always there. So this is called comparative, like when you compare one with another. Now, what is superlative? Superlative means when you compare one with the rest of the things. For example, when you compare not with your one brother or one sister, when you compare yourself with the rest of your brothers and sisters. Let's say you are two brothers and two sisters. So you compare yourself with the two sisters and one brother. So, or you can say when you compare your mother and your father, who loves you more. So this comparison, or you can compare your parents with all parents, around you in your area, in your, locality. So this is superlative comparison. When you compare one flower with rest of the flowers, or when you compare, your writing table with rest of the right, you compare your chair with rest, you compare your computer with, you compare your gadget with rest. So this is actually what? Superlative comparison. And let's see some example for you to understand the difference between comparative and superlative. You can take a look. Which of these two brands of toothpaste is best? Now, in this sentence, which of these, two brands of toothpaste. So we are comparing actually one with another. We are comparing A and B. Okay? And you can take the second sentence. Though Shaw and Jackson are impressive, Hobbs is the more qualified of the three candidates running for mayor. Now here if you see, there are three guys actually, and we are comparing one with the rest. And now, of course, the examples which I, read before you, there were some problems in them. Those problems, of course, we'll discuss once again, but I hope this idea is clear that what is superlative and what is, comparative. Do not forget this. Do not forget this. When we use adjectives, we are not in comparison actually. I mean, if I say, good boy, I'm not comparing it actually. I'm only talking about, his attribute. I'm talking about, his quality. But if there are two guys, both are good, I may ask you this question, which one is, better? I may ask you this. So which takes, the good element, of upper quality? I may ask you. So then, there will be comparison. So I hope the concept is clear. Now, let's move towards, as I said, there are certain problems with the sentences which I, read. Now, let's discuss what are those problems. See, these adjectives, how we change them into, comparative degrees, and these adjectives, how we change them into superlative degree. I mean, when I compare A and B, the adjective takes one more step. When I compare one with the rest, adjective takes rather one more, step. So, like regular and irregular verbs, adjectives, when we change them into, their degrees, they also are, in regular form and in irregular forms. Let's first talk about what are the irregular forms. Like quite commonly used adjective, good. Now, it is no, I mean, just to kid a bit. I mean, good is not gooder or goodest. Actually, it's an. I mean, if I use good as gooder and goodest, it would be, of course, a regular form. But good is available only in irregular form. And how we make it good, and its comparative degree is better, and superlative degree is, best or the best. So good, of course, is an adjective form, which is just a quality, just a modifier for the noun, and then comes better. Now, better actually is what? A comparison between two, and the best is what? Comparison between one and the rest. One more irregular form, for example, bad. Opposite, word to good. Bad, its comparative degree will be worse, and the superlative degree will be the worst. When I say worse, W-O-R-S-E, it means I'm comparing A and B. Of course, the bad part of it. And when I compare A with the rest of the, let's say alphabet, then of course, I'll use the worst. Now, the worst is superlative degree, where one is being compared with the rest of the students in a, in a class. There can be some more irregular, degrees. For example, many, its comparative will be more. Now, more actually is a comparative degree. Please keep in mind, and very commonly used for, hard words, or you can say words with more than, two or more than, two syllables. So, many is just an adjective, a qualifying word. It changes into, when we change adjectives into degrees, it changes into more. More as comparative degree and the most as superlative degree. Same way, much. Much into more, and, superlative degree is also the same, the most. Little. This is slightly tricky. Little is, of course, an adjective, a qualifying word for the noun, and its degree, comparative degree, will be little into less. Now, less actually is not an adjective, I mean to say adjective in its original form as a qualifying word. No, less will be a comparative degree to compare two, let's say two things. And then its superlative degree will be little into less and the least. So these are some commonly known, irregular degrees. Let's now come down to regular degrees. What are regular degrees? Regular means, their form, we are going to retain their form, but endings, of course, will change. For example, take it the word fast. Its comparative degree will be faster, and superlative degree is the fastest. Another example of regular, degrees, let's say tricky. Tricky is one word, and its comparative degree is trickier, and superlative is trickiest. Now, third example, let's say intelligent. More intelligent and the most intelligent. Now, if you see it carefully, I gave you three adjectives, and we made, the comparative and superlative degrees. Now, first one was fast. Now, fast is a word which has only one syllable in it. Now I'm talking about the size of words. If you remember when we discussed qualities of good writing, and there we talked about, checking the readability and listenability of your readers, and we used some formula, and there, we talked about, hard words. Hard words were words which have two syllables or more than two syllables. Now, come back to the word fast. Now, fast is a word which has only one syllable. Tricky. Now, tricky is a word which has more than one, two syllables. And one other important thing, its ending is Y. The alphabet, Y. Tricky. It has two syllables, ending is Y. Now, third one we used is intelligent. Now, intelligent has two or more than two syllables. Now, why I'm telling you, which word has how many syllables? Because from the same, point will decide the, degree formation. Now, rule number one for regular degrees. If the word has one syllable, its ending will be ER for comparative degree and EST for superlative degree. I repeat, what I said is, if a word has one syllable, then its second, comparative degree is with ER ending, and superlative degree is with EST ending. So the word fast, it's one syllable, ER ending faster, EST ending fastest. This is the story of, words with one syllables. Let's talk about such adjectives which have more than one syllables, and the endings are, let's say, Y alphabet, like the one which I used is, tricky. Now, if that is the case, word with two syllables, ending is Y, then its comparative degree is with IER, and superlative degree will be with IEST. For example, the word is tricky, and its comparative degree is with IER, trickier, and superlative degree with IEST is trickiest. Now the third one, which is what? Adjectives which have more than one syllables, I mean, two syllables or more than two syllables. Two or more than two, which of course we call hard words also. Now, their, story is slightly different. We use the word more and the most. Like the one I used is intelligent and more intelligent, comparative degree, and superlative degree will be the most intelligent. This is how, we form degrees. Now, if I take you back towards the same examples which I, gave you, and there I mentioned that something is wrong, with the forms. Let's take, a look once again on those sentences and see what are, the mistakes in them and how to correct. I would like you to take a look on your screen and see those sentences. Like the one goes, which of these two brands of toothpaste is best? Now, in this sentence, we are comparing two brands. So, degree will be used comparative, not superlative, comparative. So, what's the comparative degree of good, better, best? So, we'll be using the word better. Now, the sentence goes, which of these two brands of toothpaste is better? See the second sentence. Though Shaw and Jackson are impressive, Hobbs is the more qualified. Now, we are comparing now one with the rest. So, more is, of course, not suitable. The most qualified. See one more example. Hassan's luck couldn't have been worser than Sarah's. Now, worser actually is no degree. Worser is no degree. It's an irregular degree, and ER and EST endings only go for the regular one. So, worse, bad, worse, the worst. So, here we'll be using, the word worse. If you go back again to the last example on your screen, Imran Khan was the super best team captain in Pakistan's cricketing history. Now, here the word is, super best. When the degree is already superlative, so we don't need to use any more word to qualify it, further. Right? So, you can use it this way, the best, team captain, or you can say the most superb team captain. So, this is all like, you can use. You can correct the degrees in your sentences. Now, here, let's move towards one more point, which is very, very important. And what's that? And, of course, it's a common error also. That is what? Do not use double degrees. I mean, do not use double comparatives and double superlatives. I mean, don't say this way that he is more better. He is more better than his friend. Don't do that. Why? More is a comparative degree. Better is a comparative degree. So when you use two comparative degrees, what happens? Of course, in your sentence, there are words which are not needed. Sentence goes superfluous. Why to waste your words? So this much will be enough. He is better than. Exactly the same way. Don't use two superlatives together. I mean, the most fastest, for example. He is the most fastest athlete in the world. No, most fastest, both are superlative degrees. Fast into fastest. And, most is also superlative. More into, most. So don't use that. That's a common error. Example for you is there. Of all her family, Julia is the most happiest. Now, if you see in this sentence, most happiest. Most is superlative degree. Happiest is superlative degree. We don't need most. Happiest is more than enough. Next example. That is the most funniest joke I've ever heard. Again, case is the same. The most funniest joke, no needed. Only funniest is fine. Now, moving towards the next point about adjectives and adverbs and the degrees. See, there are some absolute concepts like, priceless or unique or perfect. Now, these are absolute concepts. I mean, they are already in their absolute form. We don't need any degree to qualify them further because they are already in their ending point. They are already hitting the glass ceiling. No need to add anything more, to amplify their meanings. That would be like an error, not any good you can do to them. Example I would like to illustrate with, on your screen, under absolute concepts, sentence is, that is the most unique wedding gown I've ever seen. Now, most unique. Most unique makes no sense. Why? Unique is an absolute concept. Remove most, unique is fine. That is the unique wedding gown I have ever seen or what. Or if you want to use most, then you have to, compromise with unique. Then remove unique and bring in unusual. The most unusual, can convey the meanings of unique. Otherwise, unique is fine. No need to use the word most. Second sentence, the painting would have been more priceless had it been signed. Now, more priceless. Priceless is an absolute concept. We don't need to use more with it. Therefore, you got to remove more. If you want to retain more in the sentence, then priceless has to go. At the place of priceless, then you can use valuable, more valuable. So this is how, we go with absolute concepts. And another important point under adjectives and adverbs, that is double negatives. And that is one very important feature of, spoken language, where we use, double negatives to amplify, to give more stress, actually, perhaps. We use double. The same thing actually sneaks into our writing, and there it becomes a blunder, error. For example, when I say, I don't know nothing. No, I don't know nothing. Don't is there, negative. Nothing is also negative. So double negative we are using, which is an error. I don't know anything would be fine. So avoid, double negatives also. In speaking, they're fine, but in writing, I guess, be careful. Okay, my dear students, let's move towards another issue of grammatical sentence. That is sentence and fragments. Now, keep in mind, sentences are not fragments and fragments are not sentences. What a funny thing. Yes, story is exactly the same. Fragments, before I explain you fragments, of course you know sentences are what? There are three qualities, three, qualification for some word group to be called a sentence. Number one, there should be a subject. Number two, there should be a predicate. And number three, these two things should convey one complete thought. And conveying one complete thought means that this word group should be able to stand alone. Now, fragment is what? Possibility is that there is a word group and there is no subject. Possibility is there is a word group, subject is there, but there is no verb. Possibility is that there is subject also, verb also, but not one complete thought, or that word group cannot stand alone. So if that is the case, we can easily differentiate between what are sentences and what are fragments. There is one test which you can conduct yourself to decide if you're confused which one is a sentence and which one is a fragment. Let's say there is a word group. Ask yourself, 2-3 questions. Like, first question you can ask, does the word group have subject in it? If answer is no, it's a fragment, not a sentence. If answer is yes, then go down to your second question. Does the word group have verb in it? If answer is no, again, it will be a fragment, not a sentence. If answer is yes, now ask one more question. Can word group stand alone? Now, if answer is no, it's a fragment. If answer is yes, then you can say, fine. Now, this is, of course, a sentence. Same three questions. In the first question, you are going to ask about the subject thing. If there is no subject, it will be a fragment. Question number 2, if there is any verb in it, if there is no verb, fragment, not sentence. Question number 3, the word group can stand alone. Does it convey one complete, thought? Can it stand alone? If answer is no, maybe it's a subordinate idea, so it's a fragment. If answer is yes, now it has qualified what? To be called, that word group, a sentence. So this is how, we check sentence and fragments. Now, let me illustrate it further with the help of some examples for you. On your screen, the first one, Viola promises to address the problem of limited parking. And second sentence is, if she is elected to the tenants' council. Now, these two sentences are there. The first sentence is an independent idea or an independent clause, can stand alone. The second sentence is what? Which is starting with the beginner, if it cannot stand alone. Now, one sentence can stand alone and second sentence cannot stand alone. So when some sentence cannot stand alone, what to do with that? Okay, then there are two ways actually. One is connect the both clauses or, change them into two independent sentences. Now, same is the rule number 1 for sentence and fragments issues. If you see on your screen, rule number 1 written is attach fragmented subordinate clause or turn them into sentences. Same thing, attach that subordinate clause with the independent clause, make it one sentence, or, change them into two independent sentences. Separate them actually. Like, if I give you a sentence, if you work hard, you will pass. Let's say the sentences were written this way, you will pass, full stop, and second one was, if you work hard. You will pass actually is independent idea. It can stand alone, okay? Whereas the second one, if you work hard, this is dependent idea, it's a subordinate clause. What to do with it? Very simple thing. Ask yourself, which one is more appropriate? Their connecting is more appropriate, or they're changing them into two separate sentences, is appropriate. Of course, in this case, their connecting is more appropriate. So what we're going to do, we'll remove the comma and add, remove the full stop, add if with the previous sentence and make it as one. How? Then your sentence goes, you work hard if you pass, or you will pass if you work hard. This is how the sentence will go. You will pass if you work hard. This is how we change, our, fragments into our, sentences. Another example for you is there on the screen where appropriacy is not with merging them, rather separating them and changing them into two independent ideas. If you see on your screen, sentence says, violence has produced a great deal of apprehension among children and parents, so that self-preservation, in fact, has become the primary aim. Now, in this sentence, the clause with so that actually is an dependent idea or subordinate clause. Now, we have to ask ourselves, which, method would be appropriate? Connecting them or separating them? In this case, perhaps connecting will not serve the purpose. Separating them, will be rather more suitable. So what we're going to do, we'll remove so that, and we'll start the sentence from the subject. And this is how, it will be converted into two independent, of course, relevant, ideas. The sentence will go this way. Violence has produced a great deal of apprehension among children and parents. Now here, so that is removed and self-preservation, in fact, has become their primary aim. So this is how, fragments are changed into sentences. Please be very careful that fragments should not remain in your writing. Solution I have given you, change them, how change them? Connect them, make them as one, or separate them, as two independent. Now let's move towards another issue, that is comma splices and fused sentences. Comma splices and fused sentences, another important issue towards grammatical sentence. Now, what are fused sentences? Now, fused sentences are about compound sentences. I mean, when compound sentences are weakly separated from each other. I mean, the link, of course, compound, if you remember how we make compound sentence, we use, commas, and we use, coordinating conjunctions to, make compound sentences. And compound sentences are composed of minimum two clauses, which are independent clauses. They're, of course, relevant one. That's why, we coordinate, with the help of a conjunction, and we make them as one. Of course, still they, separate from each other by the structure, because both of them are full-fledged sentences. No dependence case and no subordination case, So, what is fused sentence? Fused sentence is when the both independent clauses are very weakly, separated from each other. Example. One arrow is easily broken. You cannot break a bundle of 10. Now, this is one compound sentence. One arrow is easily broken. You cannot break a bundle of 10. There is no full stop. There is no comma. There is no semicolon. There is no coordinating conjunction. There is no conjunctive adverb. Nothing is there. One arrow is easily broken. You cannot break a bundle of 10. Now, this is an example of fused sentence. Very weakly separated from each other, the two clauses. Now, how to resolve the situation? Or sometimes, fused is the case, comma splice. Let me explain you this also, then, we'll move further. Sometimes, writers, they just put comma over there and no coordinating conjunction. And that becomes then a comma splice. I mean, one arrow is easily broken, comma. You cannot break a bundle of 10. Now, fused and comma splice example, you have seen. How to resolve this? Now, please listen very, very carefully. How to resolve? Method number 1. Put comma and coordinating conjunction. Then it will be, let's say, but. One arrow is easily broken, comma, and then but. Now, this will be, but you cannot break a bundle of 10. This is one solution. Second solution is, if you use semicolon, for example. One arrow is easily broken, and then you can put semicolon. A dot on comma's head, semicolon. And don't use, coordinating conjunction. It will be fine. One arrow is easily broken. You cannot break a bundle of 10. Or there is another, possibility. And what's that? That is using conjunctive adverb. Conjunctive adverb means one arrow is easily broken, semicolon. However, comma, you cannot break a bundle of 10. Now, these are three solutions I have given you. There is another solution. If appropriate, I'm not saying do it, but if appropriate, change this sentence into two simple sentences. If you feel that comma and coordinating conjunction is not a solution, semicolon is not a solution, semicolon and conjunctive adverb is not a solution, so what to do? Then simple thing, break them into two simple sentences. Or the last choice is, if you feel that compound sentence in here will not be a desirable thing, then you can change it into complex sentence. And this is how you can connect. I'll give you just one example, then I'll move, further. Example on your screen is power tends to corrupt, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And you can see very well, power tends to corrupt and absolute power corrupts absolutely. This is possibility by using coordinating conjunction and. And there is one more possibility. What is that? Power tends to corrupt, semicolon, and then absolute power corrupts absolutely. The third possibility is what? Power tends to corrupt, and then semicolon and conjunctive adverb. Moreover, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So this is how, we resolve comma, splices, and fused sentences. Use comma and coordinating conjunction. Use semicolon and conjunctive adverb, or change them into two simple sentences, or if desirable, change the compound into complex sentence. This is how, of course, you can do. So, my dear students, you have studied today some very, very important issues towards grammatical sentence, and with the comma, splices, and fused sentences, I have ended my discussion on grammatical sentence with you. Especially about issues, I would like to, count again for you, for your, information, that we talked about subject-verb agreements, the problems of these. Number one issue. Number two, we talked about the problems of pronouns. Number three, today we talked about adjectives and adverbs, the problems. And then we talked about sentence and fragments, the issues, what to do and how to resolve. And finally, we talked about, comma, splices, and fused sentences. These 5 very, very important issues towards grammatical sentence. And going back, we talked about basic clause patterns. We talked about sentence types and their purposes. We talked about, then actives and passives. We talked about, reported thing. And this whole discussion, starting from, the basic clause pattern, going down to the issues of grammatical sentence, completed our discussion. And this is what actually we meant by grammatical sentence. And of course, don't take it light. Don't take it easy, I'm telling you. This portion is basically the baseline, is going to provide you sort of a platform, a very, very technical platform from where you can take off. After grammatical sentence, we'll move towards effective sentence. And effective sentence actually is, you can say, middle point between grammatical sentence and then your paragraph writing and then into, discourse thing. Over there, we'll talk about the qualities of a good sentence and then related issues and how to resolve them. With this, inshallah, we'll see once again each other in our next class on effective sentence. Take care of yourself and each other. See you the next time. Khuda Hafiz.